Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to this public live stream. We have about 56 people waiting. We're sorry that we started late, but my laptop decided to do an update literally at 4 minutes to 8. So I had to get it to do the update before I could get going. So luckily it didn't take too long. So welcome to all of you. I hope we have some people that are non-members here in the chat. That's really awesome. Okay, I need to shut that down after the restart. Okay, how are you people feeling? What's on your minds? I hope the sound is good and you can see us just fine.
Okay.
So it's still mostly channel members. Yes. You're welcome. Absolutely. We would just like more people to come into the stream. We have 81 people in the stream now. So I suppose the channel members are more used to commenting and saying hi, etc. So do please comment in the comment section. Sound and visuals are good. Okay, you're having dinner. Nice. Hi, love. We have Lana Geldenhuis and we have Lynette Orr that's joined us as well. Yaku Israel. Okay. So we actually have Anna-Marie. Hi. We actually have a topic for tonight.
Yes, we do.
That Lauren came up with, I think a very fitting one.
It was a discussion, an outpouring of a discussion I had with my oldest son as we were going about our day. And that is the cost of government compared to the cost of freedom. And when I say the cost of government, obviously we'll be talking about the aspect of bad governance, but not bad governance alone. Just the cost of government as an entity as it stands in any country, no matter how well or how poorly it performs. Des always goes on about how little our taxpayers' money, I think it's like what, 20 cents per rand?
20 cents in a rand that is available for service delivery.
But now this is actually going a little deeper and just looking at the fact that government as an entity exists and how much that costs us. And if we really want to get higher grade, we can try to figure out how much of our working and waking time is spent just upholding the existence of government itself, because time is money.
I don't think a lot of people actually think about it like that. Actually think about the fact that 80% of
Hi,
your...
Leslie.
Yeah, hi. Hi to Busbody Blue.
Cool name.
Sean, Black Swan. Yeah, Nestle. Yeah, welcome to all of you. This is especially for the broad public out there. We see the channel members every Thursday evening at 8 o'clock where we discuss very specific topics. And I think the important thing about tonight's topic is the fact that most people don't think of how much time they spend paying tax. In other words, working for tax. And the fact that 80% of that tax is spent on government, not politicians. It's just, the politician salaries are a fraction of the overall cost. Most of it's spent on government and repaying of government debt.
Yeah.
Which is the debt of the country. So, I mean, it's the taxpayer's burden.
It's our burden. And, I just want to take this on a side route, but it's still connected, as we'll discuss later. This is what I'm teaching my 14-year-old who's technically in grade 8 if he was at school. But the kids that are really at school are hearing nothing of this. All they're being taught is to uphold the current hierarchical system in the country that's just going to oppress them forever and cause them to not be able to think critically about any information that's presented to them, nor enable them and empower them to research things on their own. So it's a continuous cycle. I feel like the education system is as important as the electoral system in needing a complete overhaul.
So, yeah, Sean, I like that legalized extortion. That's probably a very good way of putting it.
It's like saying a fine is just legalized for a prize.
Yes. And it's actually incredible how a government can be turned into a business, Because at the end of the day, for people to stay in power in our current governance system, they need to give jobs to more and more cronies. And it's no different in the Western Cape than it is to the rest of the country. It's exactly the same thing everywhere. The current system demands that you get more cronies on your side and you can pay them salaries in some kind of job. So the current system makes you grow government all the time, non-stop, until it just can't anymore.
That is the what? Parkinson's law.
Well, we are at the can't anymore stage.
We are
right
at the can't anymore. We're officially
Yeah.
there, I think.
So at this stage, they can't do anymore. And this is why a while back we actually spoke of Cyril Ramaphosa that said that they now need to cut government spending. But you see, the ruling party cannot afford this, because the people that support what they do, the people that keep that machine going, that gluttonous machine, they want money, they want a job. And often it's a cushy job, you know, and you can bribe people with tenders and all sorts of things. Hi, Glenn. So they cannot afford to not pay these people more money. And yet, when the money dries up, what do? They can't tax us more. We're beyond the taxable burden. The census that just came out had some fascinating statistics that 90% of people from African descent, youth, wants to leave South Africa. That's actually shocking, you know, up from in the 30% just 2 years ago. So in 2 years' time, and I think load shedding had a lot to do with it, service delivery issues across the country. And we haven't often spoken about that, because to us a bigger prize was freedom. And yet service delivery is a big deal to people. I mean, you want your rubbish removed if you're paying tax for it.
It is a big deal.
Yeah. You want water supplied. You want power in your plugs if you pay for the availability of that. Because we don't just pay for our electricity. We don't just pay for our water. We pay for water availability. We pay for electricity availability. And it'll be an interesting court case, you know, if you actually took government to court now, because you're paying for the availability of electricity and you have it half the time during a month. I'm sure you have a very valid court case on your hands.
So during or after this live stream, as we go through all this content, I'd like for each of you possibly to add up how much tax you pay the government from local to national level, how much tax comes off your salary, how much rates you pay on your property, how many levies do you pay, include your car licenses, your TV license, include the VAT you pay on your grocery bill and other big purchases, just to get an idea of what percentage of your salary in its entirety is being spent on the fact that government exists. That's part one. Part two is how much are you paying because government sucks? So that would be, are you paying for private school fees? Are you paying for medical aid because you can't trust your local government hospital? All those things you're paying for that you wouldn't otherwise pay for in a government that actually delivered services properly.
Think about it. You are actually paying to have good government hospitals. All the people in South Africa is paying for that.
And good schools, yeah.
Yeah, and good schools and many other things. So that is what we should insist on expecting based on the current system. And we know that the current system doesn't work. There's a flaw in the system, and I know it's quite a mind shift for people, especially if you're new on this channel.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you started highlighting that the system is broken in 2017. I never thought that we could actually change our current system, that our constitution allows us to change the constitution for a reason, so that we can implement something better.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
1994 was a transition. It wasn't a final state. And yet people realized how profitable this transition state was. So they've clung to it for dear life. They've never wanted it to move beyond what it was supposed to be. So we were supposed to be sitting probably on the third iteration of a system change.
So as Sean so aptly puts it, include the security and alarm systems due to rampant crime, of course, and all kinds of insurance for things like that.
But yeah, I think that's important.
I think the answer will be different for everybody. But if you feel so inclined, share in the comments later on once you've worked it out what percentage of your salary actually goes towards the fact that government exists and the fact that government is bad. Yeah, so let's get started. There's quite a few articles that are very new and recent that perfectly play into this topic tonight.
No, Black Swan is right. Most
And
people
Lana.
are actually paying. Most people are actually paying for their private medical aid, and they're paying for the hospitals that they won't use themselves because they don't believe the facilities are up to scratch. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah, someone paying 58% of their income. That is a ton.
Yeah, that is. I think that's quite small. I think if you work it out in the end, it should be close on 70%.
It's actually a very shallow way of looking at it because the cost is a lot more because the government's at the same time in this country destroying the economy. Property prices are at an all-time high lately. So if you look at the whole overall effect of the
Having
economy,
a government,
the economy in the state that it
Yes.
is, the complexity of our economy in the state that it is, the cost of government and then bad governance is so much more than just the parameters that we've spoken about.
Well, the economy is a reflection of the type of government you have, the type of governance system, and the type of economy they allow within the country. Because a government can decide if they're part of the international monetary system or not. That's a decision a government can make. And when the transition happened in 1994, because that's all it was, a transition, there was no democracy or anything like that. They decided to remain in a system where they could borrow money and use it to loot and pillage. So our ruling party is effectively a communist party. They are using what they call a democratic system to just benefit, which is actually quite sickening. And this is the case for most parties in government, and that is not the worst. The worst is the fact that we have over 2 million people. What was it? 2.3 million people working for government.
Yes.
Out of the 40
Somewhere
million
around there.
adults in the country. So our official total now is 62 million people after the census results came out today. 62 million people. We grew in 10 years by 10 million. And the previous 15 years, we grew by 10 million. So our growth rate is accelerating. And the youth going to varsity, 90% of them want to leave the country for opportunities. I think the government must be thinking, what's going to be left one of these days. If the very people that they birthed into this economy, into the system, has decided that this can't work for them anymore, they need to go elsewhere.
Yeah, well, I guess they'll try tax us to death, those that remain.
I wonder what they will do, because at the moment the coffers are empty. In fact, I know that they are just moving SASSA money around. I actually spoke to someone today that there was a secretary for me on a previous project when I was a project manager. Actually, I lie. I was an engineering consultant on that specific project. And she told me today that I asked her when is she finishing up, retiring? And she said next year. And she said she decided to bring it forward because she spoke to someone at the pension fund. And they said, "Sissy, grab your money and run." That was the advice she got. Take your money while you can and run.
That's scary.
Yeah. So these are people working at pension funds realizing that there's some dodgy things happening. And think about the public servants that fills up this massive government. Their pension money is being paid into a fund and the government wants their hands on it. Once they put their hands on that money, it's tickets.
Wonderful. So many comments is just speeding up here.
Good luck with keeping up.
Okay, so one thing, here's an article from yesterday. South Africans can expect another interest rate hike this year amid concerns over global oil prices.
Well, I think all of that is changing now, especially with what's happening in the Arab countries and zone
According to
area.
the Bureau for Economic Research, the rand's losses last week, a 3% decrease versus the US dollar, intensified concerns about the deteriorating inflation outlook. With this in mind, there's a rising probability that the SA Reserve Bank SARB Monetary Policy Committee will increase the repo rate by another 25 BPS at its next
Yeah,
meeting.
that's almost set. Yeah.
So I'm not sure how people are surviving with the interest rate currently. That have loans to pay off. That must be a very tough situation to be in. And even the IMF themselves on their website, this is just an interjection here for a moment. Please make sure that not just you, but you invite people to go to the IMF website and the WEF website and
Look
the
at
UN website.
And read what they say.
Because it's so easy for people to say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. If you mention Klaus Schwab or if you mention Agenda 21, people in the mainstream, the broader public, the average voter will be like, conspiracy theory, not realizing you can go look at the source and find the documents and the statements and the videos on the very websites.
And it says there right at the top, monetary policy. This is the IMF.org.
Higher for longer interest rate environment is squeezing more borrowers. Elevated inflation means central banks may have to keep policy rates higher in a way that stretches the capacity of borrowers to repay debt. So that sounds terrible. There's a cute little graph you can go look at.
So if you actually look at their plan, maybe you should send the link through.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will send the link.
But if you actually look at the graph, they are hoping that things would start dropping off from 2024, 2025, 2026. But I think that's a utopian outlook, don't you think?
Well, I would wonder what manipulation has to take place for interest rates to drop, if you know if you catch my drift.
Exactly. So, Black Swan says government have failed on all levels. Not sure if voting is the answer. I really hope it is. Well, we'll talk about that in just a while, because that is the only part in this country that's really free, is voting. And a lot of people will say that voting can be rigged and many other things. I've worked at voting stations. Our system, as long as we use ballots and we don't use some digital thing, is rock solid. I will challenge anyone to volunteer to go and work at a voting station during the election so that you can see yourself.
Yeah, we
get
really,
a testimony of it. Don't listen to us.
I need volunteers, so take Des up on that challenge, please.
Yeah, you will see how awesome the process is. You cannot crook it. And the people that have gone and done it, I mean, what feedback have they given?
Overwhelmingly positive. Ironically, I don't know if this lady's watching, but she was part of our the IEC office training for observers. And after she dealt with the IEC people doing the training, she was like, I hope that everyone in the IEC can be just like you guys. They are. They actually are, people. The IEC is not the enemy here. So I found that interesting. Awesome people that really want democracy to work as it should. And their hands are tied with legislation and the Electoral Act and how the electoral system works in this country. And they're doing a great job for the broken system that we're in right now. Yeah. And people will probably crucify me for saying that, but that's my experience. I've worked directly with them on national and local level.
Hi, Dion and Rosalie. I don't know what clock you're on, Rosalie. Where are you from? But welcome.
Okay, so I'll share the two links to go watch them. Hopefully by the end of the night, you'll have a solid idea of how awfully we are taxed by the government at every single level. I mean, I have so many links.
Yeah, it's just
someone mentioned the VAT increase, and I actually have the one article up here. So VAT increase may be on the cards for South Africans. This is news from 3 days ago.
Yeah, so it's fairly new.
Economist Azar Jameen predicts government may be forced to increase VAT. South Africans are already struggling with rising inflation and interest rates at a stagnant salaries. Yes, raise your hand if you had a salary increase anytime soon. For the consumer experience in the coming months will get tighter. Interest rate has risen nearly by 5% for the last 2 years, and employment has not picked up, and economic growth is becoming under pressure. We see all the indicators that consumer spending is now starting to take strain, he says. Jamim says the rise in interest rate has now resulted in consumers taking up more credit, and the government might be forced to increase VAT.
If the government increases VAT now, we've gone beyond the curve where they're actually going to get in more money. So if they increase VAT, they will actually start getting in less. People will literally try to avoid paying tax, and worldwide, this is proven. So they cannot get in more money from the public. They might tax people more if you're one of those that end up paying more tax. If your tax is just deducted from your salary, what's going to happen is you're going to spend less, so they're going to get less VAT. So in the end, their overall income will actually start dropping off. And once you just tax more and more, your income just drops off more and more. It's that simple. People just bunker down, change their lifestyles, and then you're totally screwed as a government. The thing is, if you have to keep on growing your government to stay in power, which is what the African National Congress has done, it has to end. It cannot indefinitely carry on. Throughout Africa, the same mentality has been there in many countries, and it's always ended in the same result. In many countries, it's ended in a coup where military leaders take over, or where people just do a run on the parliament in various places in the world and just overthrow the government or ask them to step down. And then they come up with something new. So in the end, that is inevitable here. I have one concern, and this is where we need to talk about freedom, the cost of freedom, because that's the second part of the discussion. If you have a government that claim to be freedom fighters, what are they going to do when they are removed from power? In other words, when that system that they balloon collapses, they go back to what they did before.
I think that's what Black Swan was trying to say in the comments.
Yeah. They will go back to what they did before. And the African National Congress has actually said that emphatically. They are training the youth to fight in military gear, in schools, not normal public schools, but in military schools and camps. And this is their mindset. We will rule until Jesus returns. That is what they said, right?
I think Jacob Zuma said that.
No, it's not just him. There's many people that have that attitude. The other attitude that people in the ruling party have is that the ANC's manifesto, whatever, is above our constitution. So what they decide to implement is above the constitution of South Africa, because to them, that is the basis of what they are doing. So I believe that they are just using democracy, or what is called democracy, to achieve their end goals. I don't think any of them believe in democracy at all, actually.
It's a generalization.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I like to generalize on things that look very general. There might be a handful of people that claim to think that they believe in democracy, but anyone that believes in this party system and defend this current constitution does not believe in democracy. So I will generalize on that, and you might disagree with me.
Excessive hikes in municipal rates raise the ire of South Africa's biggest property owners. So this is another one. Have your rates, local municipal rates, increased recently? Let us know in the comments as well. I know that in the Eastern Cape, in one of our WhatsApp groups, someone was raising the issue that the dams are full, but the water prices, the water tariffs are remaining the same. Can you please enlighten them as to what happened in Cape Town?
Well, in Cape Town, we were in the middle of a dry period, like we've been in many times before. Our dams were fairly low at that stage, and they were pummeling water out of the Theewaterskloof Dam, firstly into the Brede River, and later via Theewaterskloof to Klein Plasie Dam via the Eerste River out to sea. And you have to ask yourself, why? I don't believe we're a water scarce country at all. Our water pipelines are bust. In Cape Town, 20% of the water being pumped from dams like Voelvlei and like the Berg River Dam or Vennershoek Dam, 20% of it leaks into the ground, is wasted, thrown away, okay? And then the rest ends up in the reservoirs and in our taps. But what happened during that time is they came up with multi-billion rand projects to desalinate our seawater, of which not a drop of water was supplied to the public. Nothing, nada, nux. Did anyone ask any questions?
No.
Once again, the cost of government.
Yep.
People forget. It was actually the topic of my video that I made earlier today on the way home. The fact that people forget easily. You know, the one project that the Cape Town Metro government lied about blatantly was at Monwabisi Beach. I actually went there, took photos. The pipes were lying in a heap there. I spoke to the local residents and they said there's no ways we're going to allow them to put up a desalination plant here. Okay? Meantime, the Cape Town Metro government made statements that 70% of that project is done. They were blatantly lying to the public. People were just lapping it up, and I just went and exposed them all over Facebook. And at the time, Sandra Dixon ran with that information. I was basically the person providing her the info. And as they were lying in their statistics, their drop-down curve to day zero, I was just catching them out on everything, how they were not including the agricultural sector and many other things. And they were changing their curve in real time as I was exposing them on Facebook. Half an hour later, they'll be out with a new curve.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how they were exposed. There was never going to be a day zero because we were always able to extract more water out of the dams like Tewaterskloof by building relay pumping stations. And I remember saying that the ANC government is waiting for the DA to make complete idiots of themselves and say the dam is now empty, because that's what Patricia de Lille said at the time. She says when we get to 10%, we can't extract the water. I kid you not, we actually drove out to the dam when we got to this 10%. And lo and behold, what was there? They built a big pond around the pump intake, and they had relaying pumps pumping the water into there. No issue. They could extract down to the last bit of mud if they wanted to. And I think the ANC government was just laughing at this lot. So that was an example of where national government, who was responsible for that, had a plan, and they were just watching the Western Cape government making a fool of themselves. And once again, something where government wants to extort money out of people, put in smart meters, charge more money, a lot more money. And that's the point I think you wanted to make. Did they reduce the fees at the end of that? No, they didn't. But they didn't even deliver what they said they were going to. There's court cases today still with these companies that were going to supply this desalinated water. Our seawater here in Cape Town cannot be desalinated with normal equipment. Okay, they tried it at Koeberg Nuclear Power Station. I actually walked over the site where all of that desalination equipment stood, where the power station manager stood with the SABC cameras and everything. I was there when it happened. And meantime, they were trying to get the plant to work literally for a couple of seconds for the TV crews. But a flange burst during the filming, okay? The plant was shut down just after and was never started up again. It was flippant taken off site, never to be seen, just to put out this idea that Koeberg is also doing their part. We can't desalinate this seawater that we have here in Cape Town. You need very expensive equipment to do it effectively, massive filtration systems. So all of it failed dismally. I said that it was going to fail. Anthony Turton, I'll never forget, he hated my guts for exposing all of this. And I had huge fights with him on the phone and later on social media. And Xanthia Lindbergh hated my guts too, because I exposed everything that they were trying to put out there to tell the public that they are trying to help you, etc., which is all just nonsense. When they were throwing water out to sea, they were creating a crisis so that people put in smart meters. Who got the tender? Family of Patricia de Lille. The cost of government.
So just back on rates and tax, yeah. So those in the Eastern Cape, I'm sure you're not going to get a decrease. No, you're not. So here's an article. I think I shared the link already. About the increase of rates. It says here, the association said that the increases were not only inflationary, as alluded to by the SA Reserve Bank recently, but also threatened the viability of commercial property tenants who form the bulk of ratepayers in most metro municipalities. Municipalities have regularly increased rates by more than 10% per annum over the past few years, far more than the annual consumer price index. Water and property rates prices have increased 140% between 2010 and 2021, almost double the rise in inflation. That can't be sustained. That's unsustainable.
No, it's not. You can't sustain it.
The unsustainable increases in property rates materially prejudices the SARB's ability to deliver on its constitutional mandates. So
I can't believe the Reserve Bank is written into our constitution. I just want to address something that Paul van Heerden is saying here. There is a case to be made that the real intention of load shedding. I just want to stop you there, Paul. Load shedding is absolutely needed. I am an energy supply expert, not just an expert professional. I actually, I'm part of the startup for Unit 1 at Kuburg right now. So load shedding is absolutely needed. Load curtailment is so that you can get certain of the infrastructure, for instance, like Palmit and also Drakensberg pump storage schemes to get their dams full, to get enough reserve margin so that you can do black start capabilities from Drakensberg, so that you have peaking. Load shedding is necessary, always. It's done from Simmerpan by very capable Eskom staff. There's no politician involved in load shedding. So I really want people to get that out of their mind. The people that put out this conspiracy theory twat, it's rubbish. I can look at the national control log. If they start to do load curtailment and it's not necessary, I'll be the first to tell you. So they need to do load shedding. Things are really bad within Eskom and the fleet and those coal-fired stations, the boilers, the force draft fans, the mills, the belts and everything else. Things go wrong. It's a fact. Whether people like it or not, it's happening. Okay, so load shedding is needed. I have not seen any time when load shedding is not required. So anyone coming up with other stories, they don't know what they're talking about. They're not an expert. I actually am. And I can educate you on it in detail if you want.
Another live stream topic coming up. Okay, so just in summary of the rates and taxes, this organization, this association, commissioned Oxford Economics to produce an economic report on the impact of property taxes. The report indicates clearly that the 5 biggest metropolitan municipalities, which include City of Johannesburg, Tshwane, City of eThekwini, Cape Town, Nelson Mandela Bay, have over the past years increased rates and taxes to such a level it is detrimentally affecting the local economy of each municipality and the national economy. What does that mean for each of us? Just more suffering, more hardship.
But you know, the city of Cape Town has actually increased the electricity rates above that of what NERSA allows.
Mm-hmm.
So they have been one of the harshest at increasing rates and taxes. But you know, they'll tell you, oh, but we are delivering services. That's not how it works. And people are just putting up with this. You know, if this happened in Europe, the people would be up in arms. They'll be in the streets. And we've been conditioned in our schools, churches, etc., mosques, synagogues, whatever, to just listen to what the government says.
Obey authority.
Just obey authority.
Respect those in power.
Yeah.
What nonsense. Who believes that? Then, of course, you have your TV licenses and driver's licenses, a passion of yours. Another passion of yours is the fuel levy of South Africa.
The fuel levy is a huge passion of mine. So here's my simple point. Why is the levy a percentage and not an amount? In other words, the government benefits from the fact that fuel prices go up. When fuel prices are higher, the government's making a killing because it's a percentage. Why is it a percentage and not an amount? Have you ever asked that? It's utter nonsense. And most of what we pay is towards the government. It's ridiculous.
Okay, I'm gonna send this little.
Do you know what will happen to them if we just stop driving for two months? Just decide to stay at home.
That's the power of mobilization. So I'm going to send this. I hope the link works as a slideshow on the fuel levy by the government itself. Okay, hope it works. I don't know. It's a PDF.
Yeah, it should work.
Okay, so where are we? So it says some of the recent.
Yeah, Black Swan, that fuel levy has been there since forever. The ANC certainly didn't come up with that one. So there's a lot of things that we can blame the African National Congress, the DA, the EFF, and all the other parties in Parliament for, because they're all the government. The government is not the ANC. Okay, the government is everyone in Parliament. And the ANC certainly has not got 90% or 95% of the seats. So you have to blame government for everything that is happening. There's many things that you can blame on outside influences, and all the parties allow those influences to affect how they do things in government. And our government thinks that they have power over us. And this is a huge problem.
Indeed.
That is one of the prices of government in this country, in our system, is that they believe they have power over us and that they can use the police and the military against its own citizens.
To serve it.
Yeah, to serve the government, not the other way around. This happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a huge problem. I don't think people understand how badly that can get out of hand in future. So people should be very concerned about things like that.
Exploring some of the taxes we pay in South Africa. This is an article on MoneyWeb. And it's all, the obvious ones are there at the top: personal tax, VAT, corporate income tax, capital gains, dividends, customs, pay as you earn.
Capital gains to me is really sick. Where someone is actually able to go and develop something and you get screwed over for that. On money you've already paid tax on. That to me is just wrong.
And you have 13 additional taxes. Fuel levy, the tax applied to the price of petrol and diesel and contributes to the funding of road infrastructure projects. Road accident fund, skills development levy. Employers are required to pay a 1% levy on the total salaries of the employees to support skills development initiatives. How these initiatives are rolled out and how effective they are, we don't know.
No one cares. They just want the money. You're supposed to, if you prove that you've done it, you're supposed to get the money back.
Unemployment Insurance Fund, UIF, I'm sure everyone is well aware
of that. That's just a way for the government to get 1% of your income.
Plastic bag levy, a levy of 25 cents is imposed on every plastic bag distributed by retailers aimed at discouraging plastic bag usage.
It goes to the government.
Yeah.
I mean,
environmental levy on tires, a levy charged on every new tire sold to fund the recycling and safe disposal of used tires.
Do you think that levy goes towards that? The safe recycling of tires.
Sugar tax, a tax on sugar-sweetened beverages to discourage excessive consumption and address health concerns related to obesity and non-communicable diseases.
No, it's just another way of making money.
Electricity levy, a levy imposed on electricity consumption to fund renewable energy projects and encourage energy efficiency. That's so cute.
Yes, TV license fee.
Households with a television sets are required to pay an annual license fee to support the operations of SABC, even if you only watch Netflix. Import duties, taxes imposed on imported goods to protect local industries and regulate international trade. Estate duty, a tax levied on the total value of individuals' assets upon their death. Donations tax, a tax imposed on the transfer of assets by way of donation or gift, subject to certain exemptions and thresholds. And then finally, airport tax. Airport taxes is a term that is frequently used to refer to all fees, costs, and taxes that are recovered through the purchase of airline tickets, giving the impression that airport taxes belong to the Airports Company of South Africa, One of the fees obtained through the purchase of the airline ticket is the passenger service fee. National Treasury mandates that these fees be divided between taxes, regulated fees, and non-regulated fees.
So that goes towards the government, not the Airports Company of South Africa.
Yeah, so that's a lot. That is a lot of tax we pay. Never mind the licenses, never mind the private sourcing of services.
Never mind the fines.
That's
a big business.
Yes. Wow.
I saw a guy sitting there next to the road again. Someone was flashing their lights thinking this is not okay. I want to warn everybody.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
How much? Let us know in the comments how much you pay on speeding fines. That'd be very fascinating. Sugar tax, and we paid the same for soda water and sugar-free drinks. Interesting. Yes, they want the TV license to be part of your normal tax.
Hardy's coming up with a very interesting bit of information there that you might enjoy.
Oh, government. Yes.
Governing the mind.
Well, that's what it seems like, doesn't it? Carbon tax goes to politicians. Carbon, like Porsches. Taxes on the money-making scam. Why do we pay tax on second-hand stuff? Tax has been paid by the first person who bought it in the first time around. Death and taxes.
You know, when it comes to taxes, there's so much we can say. But we're talking now about the cost of government, of which taxes is just a small part. Let's talk about the cost of freedom.
The cost of freedom, yes.
Yeah.
So hopefully in this time, maybe
because this ties into government.
Maybe you have an idea of how much of your salary is spent on the government in terms of rates, tax, levies, licenses, VAT, all the rest. Increase
the security industry, the insurance industry. They need things to be stolen.
Wow.
The security industry is a massive part of business in South Africa.
And here's a personal story of how the system's broken. When my dad passed, my mom had to pay the transfer fees on the house. She passed shortly after, and then the grandkids who got the house had to pay it all over again. Crazy. So the cost of freedom so hopefully we have a picture of how we are spending a lot of our time, or a lot of our time spent working is actually dedicated to paying either the government in some way, shape, or form, or paying someone for the fact that government is failing at delivering certain services that we expect from them.
And this is not the 20% service delivery that then goes out to tenders that then gets gobbled up by certain companies. I actually spoke to someone today who tendered for something, and he was R1 million cheaper, could deliver the product. It was installation of a sound system, and someone else tendered R1 million more. Okay, so 3 million versus 2 million. This is basically the scenario. And this was purely based on BE points.
Mm-hmm.
And the one person was a level 2, the other person was a level 1. And the difference in points made the person allocated to R1 million more. And this is in a state-owned entity.
Okay, so now
how can we afford that?
This is the indirect cost of BEE then.
Well, that's government again, government policy, costing the taxpayers more money. And this is why they need more and more and more. It's actually frightening. That is the 20% that is supposed to work for us. How much of that actually ends up? I don't actually know how much of that 20 cents in a rand actually ends up serving us.
So before we get into the cost of freedom, this kind of bridges the two. A lot of people will say, because I speak about system change a lot as leader of OHM and in the capacity of an OHM founder, and system change is really the hallmark of everything we do. But most people will be like, you know, why bother with system change? Let's just govern properly. Let's just govern in the normal system properly. Most people would absolutely love that. However, the system is set up in such a way that it's too easy for humans in politics to capitalize off the unbeknowing citizens, and it's inevitable. It goes back into Parkinson's law and just human nature combined. And unless we change the system to something completely different, we'll always have this happening to some degree or the other.
I think this is why we're in the state we're in. Everyone believes that we are just stuck here. And then, like I said earlier, we should have been on our third iteration of changing our political system to improve it. 1994 was supposed to be a transition. Our constitution was a transitionary constitution.
Yeah.
Subsequently, even our flag and our anthem was transitionary. So we haven't moved past that. Just like Lawrence says, that system was absolutely set up for people to pig out in the government system. I spoke to someone the other day, the Uber driver. What country was he from again?
Malawi.
In Malawi, they actually vote directly for their president and directly for their MPs. They can hold them directly to account. We can't even do that here. It's like we have nappies on and we're in preschool and we still soil ourselves because we can't figure out how to actually vote for an individual. So we need to mature to a point where we can actually decide who our president is, where people actually put in the effort to decide who they want to vote for. The whole party system has made voting lazy. It's very easy to just make your tick behind a party symbol. You're going to have to do your homework if you have to vote for an individual.
Yes, and also, I'm curious to know how many candidates would actually come forward.
It's going to be tough.
Hundreds of thousands?
I don't know. If the
thousands?
IEC, if those rules are set and they are strict, it's not going to be that many people.
No, it won't be that easy. You're going to have to prove you have support of some kind.
Absolutely.
So interestingly, I'd like to know, not like to know, I think what would be great is if every single political party got behind the idea of voting for the president. Forget the other changes.
To begin with.
Forget all the other changes Omer is suggesting to the electoral and governance system. Forget that. Just if every single political party and person who is interested in influencing legislature of the country, if everyone could get behind the fact that we should vote for our president, that will be a huge step in the right direction at the very least. And I'm curious to see as we head into 2024, if any of those parties or organizations will start to talk about that, and I hope they do.
Well, this is certainly an interesting strategy. I don't know what people would do. But what did Abraham Lincoln do to get rid of slavery in the US? He approached people that were diametrically opposed to him on many things. But he convinced them to agree on this one thing. So I think that could literally become a mainstay, the concept of voting for the president, the fact that the Zondo Commission has already said that the president should be directly voted for. In that system, parties still won't fall away. They would still be there.
One step at a time, right?
I think it's still important that one says that you want a complete system changed.
The nice thing is if many people start asking, and many organizations and influential people start asking for the president to be directly voted for, the concept will become mainstream in the public domain, which it isn't right now. People are very politically unaware, and it's very sad. So it's a step in the right direction, although we need complete and absolute transformation.
So what do you think of that as a push with the parties that are currently in parliament, that you try and get them behind that one thing? Do you think something like that would work?
Mark says, are they not happy to collapse the governments as planned? If you're referring to all the political parties in South Africa, if government collapses, they don't get salary. So I don't think...
Yeah, they absolutely want this government to carry on for as long as possible. so they can eat at the trough. We need to change the system completely. That is super important, and that is our main aim.
Yop says to get people to participate further than voting, we need to inform people and activate them on a big scale. So this is where I want to talk about the cost of freedom, because here is some ugly truth. The cost of freedom is far more than the cost of government.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you might have, I don't know, become breathless at the sight of how much money you pay in government in all its various forms if you go through that exercise. But the cost of freedom is so much higher. It's easy to just pay a large percentage of salary over to the government. That's easy. Unpleasant, but easy. The cost of freedom is not just your time, but it's your action and involvement. The things most people run away from, and it's why I've always asked myself from the beginning, especially as I've interacted with more and more people, do people even want freedom?
This is why there is a government. There is a government because people don't want to do certain things.
Yeah.
The government does things in place of that. It's like in our school system. Comprehensive sexuality education, the government is motivating that it's necessary because parents don't teach their kids XYZ. Now, whether it's okay to our kids aren't exposed to all sorts of profanity and anything sexual at all. We keep our kids from that. They were being exposed to things in school now that we absolutely don't believe they're ready for.
Mm-hmm.
And the government believes that they need to do that because of what kids do in school. And they believe it comes directly from the parents. So it's the parents that cause the situation. And then the government reacts to that. And you need to ask yourself, how did the schooling system and the parents of the country raise a generation that is doing the most ghastly things at the age of 7 or 8? Because that's what's happening.
That's a pandemic.
In affluent schools.
All across all income brackets, it's happening.
Yeah, people will actually be shocked, you know.
I've had a very frightening conversation with a social worker for government who's over a very large area of the Western Cape. And if it wasn't for my conversation with her, I might have been too ignorant to pull my kids out of school. Yeah, it was a scary conversation. What she experienced as a social worker, having to treat children who come from homes with loving parents, but who have access to the internet.
On their phones.
Or have access to a friend with the internet. Either way, it's an absolute disaster, because you have some instances where a kid will hear something dodge and then ask Siri, what is XYZ? And then Siri doesn't ascertain that this is a 7-year-old. Siri responds. Siri obliges in ways that is traumatizing forever on the mind of this child. Disaster. So that's when I realized you have to keep your kids far away from other kids whose parents don't have the same values as you. And you have to keep your kids far away from the government. In other words, public schooling.
I actually think that the schools hide these incidents.
Absolutely.
Because it's very prevalent.
Absolutely.
So your kids at school are being exposed to the most heinous things, and most kids won't tell you. So a lot of these kids that you saw, the parents had no idea.
Yeah.
And then they start acting up in school. The teachers pick up on it.
With one incident, the mom and dad were kind of blaming each other for who's abusing the kid because they were divorced. And they were both convinced that someone must be abusing this kid. Meanwhile, it was just the internet.
And friends.
Yeah.
We're talking about sub A, sub B.
And we're also talking about really affluent areas where you wouldn't think this is happening. You're sending your kid, this is such a nice school. The teachers are so amazing.
These are well-known schools.
And it was then, and then I realized. So in the same light, so people don't want to exist without this government service. Government's offering so many services. So the cost of freedom, the cost of actually taking control of your role as a parent, as your role as a citizen, as your role as a community member is far greater than paying tax. And it's about what you want at the end of the day, ideologically and also realistically? Do you want to continue living the way we are? Because government will always get bigger and devolve in its current form. Or do you want freedom?
To me, the government will get bigger and bigger the more people just hand over their problems to the government. Because Patricia de Lille was right about one thing when you were involved in a campaign in 2016, when she told people that your community is the problem. I'm not the problem. Government's not the problem. You are raising gangsters. You are harboring drug addicts and murderers and rapists and all sorts. The mothers, you are doing this.
I love that about her.
Yeah.
Because I was
very straightforward.
I was with her literally every meeting pretty much. And in the areas where there was a lot of gang crime, she said, we can't put a policeman on every person's door. It's up to the mothers to report their sons, and the mothers are not reporting their sons for various reasons. And she always gave that message that government is not here to fix social ills. Government's not here to parent your children. And I love that she said that.
Thanks, Dion, for becoming a channel supporter. We really appreciate that.
And it was a message that I really resonated with. And that's a message I agree with. We have to take control of our own selves and then our own families. So interestingly, as we near the elections, I'm thinking of candidates. And, an important thing I'm looking for is, can you look after yourself? Are you healthy? Do you make healthy decisions? Do you take responsible decisions in your life? Or are you someone that just goes with the flow and parties all weekend and can't control your absolute desire
faculties
for alcohol or whatever it is, whatever addiction you have? As a public looking for public representatives, I need people that can control, firstly, themselves,
can represent the public,
and then look after their family in whatever capacity. And then if they can look after themselves and then their families, then you can trust that they perhaps can look after a community of a certain size.
Or represent them.
But until people can display that, they should stay far away from government. And that, unfortunately, is, as I'm learning, most people.
Most people need government. They need large corporations, and they might have the best intentions of improving. Lauren and I actually had a long discussion, and we went over a whole list of things again to reassess. We do this often. Do that actively, and you must have spent quite a bit of time going through the processes of questioning certain things. And there's a very specific process you have to work through. You do a root cause analysis of many things, and you have to ask hard questions. And in the end, you criticize yourself the most, because you have to look at what you can do, what you can change to be the best that you can be. And this is what Lauren is going to expect of someone that wants to be a public representative, someone that is willing to do that. And it's not easy. The world we live in right now is taxing everyone to a large extent. Not just physical taxing, it's taxing on your mind, on your body. People feel the stress. I remember this morning when I chaired a meeting, there was a safety message. It was a beautiful safety message on mental health. And it was from General Electric, one of the safety people at General Electric. And the message that they gave, it was like there's a spot with a whole lot of stressful things going into it. And the spot is an outlet at the bottom. And it looks at the various things that you can do to relieve stress. And it's actually really awesome that you would just look at something like that. And I'm sure on YouTube and other platforms, you might find many things like that that'll show you all the stresses that we have in life. And that is part of the price of freedom. Is stressing about who's walking around in your neighborhood, not just thinking, but the neighborhood watch will take care of it. And you get good stress and bad stress. Okay, stressing about what is happening in your community. Are your rainwater drains clean when the next storm or flood comes?
What's your neighbor up to? What are they brewing in their
Yeah.
backyard?
Come on, word. Lauren conspiracy theory, banana. Wow. I suppose that's also not a bad thing, I suppose. But
No,
that's sticking
yeah.
your nose in someone else's business.
But
isn't it?
I've said, and I hate this culture, but I've always said that the nosy neighbor is a safe community. A community where there's nosy neighbors is a safe community, although I despise that. Essentially, it's far better than having the government know your every move. It's about taking responsibility. That's everything. And,
Yes,
I
yeah,
actually
Audrey,
get sick of
that's 100%.
sick of myself, because everything I say goes back to we as individuals need to improve. Whatever I try strategize, whatever new answer I try to get to, it always goes back to individuals need to get better, stronger, and more intelligent.
But that's what everything came down to. I need to improve, you need to improve.
And so does everyone else.
It's self-improvement. So this is basically the plans that Lauren came up with are still relevant. So this is basically where we got at, and that those plans will develop you, it will develop us, and that's important. The fact that doing or implementing the plan will help you to become a leader in your own life, community, etc. Because this is sorely lacking right now. Because we see that we lack certain skills, attributes, etc. Both Lauren and myself, we see things that we lack. I mean, I can never become a politician because of how I behave and feel towards people that I find irritating. I mean, I just I can't keep my mouth shut, and I'm bad at just listening often, because if my mind is like 3 turns ahead, it's already like spewing out what the person's going to say over the next couple of sentences, because I've heard it so many times. And when you're a politician or a representative, you need to shut up and listen to people. I can't do that. I'm sorry.
No,
so
you cannot.
I cannot become what a lot of people want me to be. I won't do it. I understand my weaknesses. What I am good at is teaching and training people. So I've proven myself not only in the nuclear industry, but in many other places. That's one thing I can do. And so I will work with my strengths, and I will try and transfer as many skills that I have as possible to the people of South Africa, those that are willing to listen. And I believe you're willing to do the same thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes.
But hopefully you'll also be willing to go through this growth process like everyone else has to, because no one has functioned in this new system we want to create yet. We don't know how people are going to respond to freedom, the cost of freedom.
We don't know.
We don't know. It's like a dog getting hold of a rabbit, and now they don't know what to do with the rabbit.
So actually, I was discussing this with my children as well.
They are actually a very good bouncing ball for info.
They are, and my oldest, who is
he's got a
very
brilliant
thinker,
mind. Wow.
He says immediately you need to work with the youth because they are the easiest to adapt to change. But the biggest weakness is their addiction to the internet. And I think that is wise. Wise of him to say that, because the older you are, the less likely you are to adapt to change, which is a generalization. But in the most part, I think there's merit to what he says there.
So it means that the only way to reach them is on the internet, which means social media.
But on the internet doesn't inspire actual real life action, though.
So you would have to create activities that they would actually be interested in.
Johan, I'd love to be a politician, but I know I'll be taken out, unfortunately. You don't just get taken out.
No.
It doesn't work that way. So please send me an email.
Yeah, please, Johan, send Lauren an email.
We
need as many people as possible that are willing to become involved. So you actually want to rewrite what it is to have a government. Call it something completely different.
I don't know what to call it or anything like
that. Do you
that.
have any suggestions of what we should call? Because I believe in governance. Governance is important to maintain civility. What do we call it? A grand council? I don't know. I'll keep quiet. You people can come up with all of those things. I'll try and teach you how to survive.
Nico de Jager is what carries a ban from boardroom badge. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Actually, in the nuclear industry, I mean, you follow nuclear protocols. I often speak about protocols. They actually exist. A lot of people think it's funny. But there's a certain decorum that you have, and I'm often on the edge. And that is one good for certain things. The nuclear industry is excellent at applying your best skills and putting you into a position where you can contribute the most towards the organization or the success path. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Doing what I'm good at.
Jared says, I think we're pretty free in here in SA compared to the rest of the world, maybe because
Absolutely.
the government is incompetent.
I agree. I've said that many times before. The incompetence of the government gives us freedom right now, but that is the cost of government in the current system. Once again,
the government, our South African government, has not met various United Nations Sustainable Development Goals because of its incompetence. So in a way, in the past on these live streams, I very often have celebrated the incompetence of our government, saying I'd rather have this government incompetent than a more competent party that enforces the UN principles. And I still maintain that. Yes, I do.
Yeah, people need to decide what's more important to them, a pothole being fixed or being free to make their own decisions. And I think during the COVID pandemic, for the first time, people were put there, where you need to think, wow, if another pandemic happens or anything else, who saw about the Legionnaires' disease? Someone sent me the link. That's spreading in water supply in Poland. The first time I heard about Legionnaires' disease, it actually developed in air conditioning systems on a high-rise building. And these people were dying and no one knew what on earth was happening. I think it was in France. But it's a horrible disease to get. And it's spreading in Poland now in the water system. And people are asking questions saying, but this seems a bit odd that it would spread in the water system, especially in an area that was linked to the Russia-Ukraine war or something like that. I can't remember.
Gideon says, call it maybe the Senate. That reminds me of Star Wars. So no,
maybe it should be like Star Wars. Have a Darth Vader.
Lovely. Darth Vader.
Daft.
Philanthropist.
Oh, Daft Vader.
Lifts other people's lifts.
Oh, yes. Upliftment.
Someone, Onella said, call it the Self-Governing Forum. We're onto something there instead of World Economic Forum.
You see, you just need to throw it out there. You'll get as many ideas
when
as
I hear it.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of serving under new commanders and managers who had very visible and audible disdain for yes men. Yes men meaning?
People that just agree with him. In other words, they are looking for people that challenge the status quo. That's unusual. Yeah. That is very unusual. You're very lucky to be in an environment like that.
I must say I also like that. So with OM, I've always I started OM all by myself, all by my lonesome. Usually when people start a party, they're like a group of people. But here I am.
And everyone already knows them because they've been in the news.
So here I am all alone. And then I'll take an idea to a person or another person, hoping to be challenged. And they're like, oh, no, it's great. There's nothing worse than that because you can't improve if everyone's just like, oh, it's great. Perfect. You need to be challenged and critiqued. What? France and UK kids staying at home, not going to school because of bed bugs.
Wow.
That's weird.
No, that is weird. I just want to thank all of you that have joined us for this Tuesday live at 8 o'clock. We've had over 180 people at one stage. And during the live stream last week, we had over 600 people that joined us during that time. So those of you that can't, that came in late, you can go and watch the beginning of the recording later. We're not going to put out a download of this recording in the normal video section as well. We stopped that last week.
Did we stop that? I thought we just forgot.
No, you specifically said you didn't want to.
Oh.
Yeah.
We shall reconvene.
Reconvene. Okay.
Let's consult with the government later.
Well, you are the government or what? Okay.
Exactly. Okay, so the cost of freedom ultimately is going to cost a lot more. Do you want freedom? Yet I pose the question yet again. Do you actually want freedom? Do the people around you actually want freedom? I hope so.
It is easier to just pay government that tax. A lot of people moan about it,
a lot of
but people have done it without question.
Long time ago, I don't know if people just stopped having these conversations with me or if people just stopped thinking about this, but a lot of people would always praise Nordic countries specifically, where they pay a lot of tax, but government works perfectly.
And it does everything
I
for
don't
them.
want that either. No, thank you. I don't want too much control.
If something goes wrong with that government, everyone is screwed. They won't know how to do anything, even take a holiday. I'll never forget that one guy that I saw in Algeria that was on 2 years leave, paid leave, because his wife had a baby. They encourage kids, and you take off. And he was a teacher, a school teacher, so they got a replacement for him. But they pay like over 70% tax. The government takes care of the rest.
Yeah. So who wants a system like that? Not me.
There might be many people that want something like that.
But the minute there's a reason for government
because they still seem free,
the minute the government has a reason to make sure that you don't die or something along those lines,
total control immediately.
Then you're in trouble. So we have to create a perfect midway, if you can call it that.
But Sweden said stuff that they decided no.
Very unique.
Volvo country.
Yes. Yeah, we have to find a sweet spot where we have maximum freedom and still maintain civility, where we can eradicate poverty and minimize violence that's wrought against each other and ensure people leave each other alone, essentially, because that's what I want. I want to live in peace. And I don't even want to know my neighbors technically until the community needs my involvement. So that's ultimately what I think a lot of people want.
I don't know. To be left alone.
To be left alone by
the youth
by government. I'm not sure what the
left alone by government. I think so. Yes.
And left alone definitely until.
But it's important for most people to know, especially for those of you that are new, that in the 2024 elections, you can vote for system change, because I will be on the ballot nationally. And soon you're going to have to rake in how many signatures?
14,800.
I can't see how the IEC is going to go through all that. Really?
That's their problem.
How are they going to physically check it all? Goodness.
I don't know either. Yes, but we'll discuss that on another platform at a later stage soon.
So thanks for being with us. Is there anything else that's pressing? This has been another long live. We wanted to be 30 minutes. It's never going to work out like that.
Marlene says, in the end, women will be the deciding factor to reclaim our freedom. When we reach the ultimate point of tolerance, things will change radically. Yeah, I think we have too much tolerance in this country.
We have a lot. Didn't you make a video once? I
did. We're too resilient. We're too willing to put up with hardship.
Yeah.
If we were more brats like me, millennial, we would demand quality and we would demand services and we would demand stuff. We should.
Yeah, Dion, what's the best way to make contact re-politics?
Go to ohm.org.za. Our website's there. Our email address is there. I'll do it. We have a shorter website now.
Yeah, so you can just go to www.ohm.org.za, which helps a lot. So please, if you can, like this video so more people can watch it. The last week's live stream, we had over 2,000 views, so it's increasing, which is really awesome.
Hi, Ro, look at that. AJ. What? Schools in Sweden ask kids every morning if parents hit or fight with children, and if a kid is sick, then at least one parent has to go home from work to look after their children. That is so dystopian.
Yes, the first part, but I mean the
second part.
parent going home to the kid, even in South Africa, that's the case.
Yeah, but I mean,
Anyway, but the first part, yes, asking the kids, uh, hit or fight with children. Yeah, that's government parenting. That's a very difficult topic for a lot of people. A lot of people will agree with that, and
but in principle, yeah, you don't want kids to suffer, but you also think, how far does it go? You
yeah.
forced your kids to eat vegetables, or you forced your kids to eat meat. Now you're a bad parent. Where does it end? If you look at the climate
Well, in
change
South
world,
Africa, kids can divorce their parents from age 12, like legally divorce their parents and go live with someone else. So, yeah. But thanks so much for joining us for this live chat. Is there anything else that is really pressing that you quickly want to bring up or for us to discuss? And then we can close off. If there's anything else, just let us know. That's really bothering you. Emancipation, yes. I think uh, the things that we have been putting out there for the past 3 years that all of you have helped us with on social media, everywhere, it has permeated throughout society. I think you've done an excellent job at getting information out there, creating awareness. We've done what we can. We need other people to also do what we are doing. We can't be the only people. There needs to be many other people saying that we need to change our system, that we need to elect our leaders directly so we can hold them to account. I think that's the main thing, because if you elect them directly, you can also remove them in the system that you are proposing.
exactly.
And I think a lot of that part is what a lot of people really want.
Yeah, well, in the system we're proposing, you'll have an opportunity to vote out your rep every single year, or should I say representatives, because you'll have a few. So if enough people rock up to vote out, then you'll have to have elections again.
Yeah.
And that's under certain circumstances, that same candidate can run again.
Andries says something that's close to my heart. Soldiers lost. Andries, this heartbreaking. A felt fire can be as fast as it wants to be. I would think that those soldiers would be trained to get out of harm's way, to do what is necessary, to be prepared for a felt fire when you're in a dry area with brush. I don't know what went wrong there. I wasn't there. But it's horrific, the amount of South African soldiers we've lost. And, many of the articles are trying to say that it's budget cuts. This is training. You can't tell me that budget cuts makes you give the troops bad training. I can't see that. I really can't see that. Unless they say, but then now they have bad quality instructors. I mean, that's nonsense. I can't believe that.
Well, that's another calculation we're going to do. How many lives lost because of bad governance?
Yeah, that is another cost. Well, we literally have gangs running areas in Cape Town. They're in control, not the police or the government. There's no government in control there. There's many areas in Cape Town. If you take a corner and you drive past a certain point, you are in a place where our constitution, laws, none of that come.
Scary.
At all. At all.
Yep, we are working on those strong.
We do need a strong army. The Omega training will help with that. Lauren will be cracking on with more public training videos. It's a lot of work, and we've had a lot to do lately. Think about, re-strategize, rethink. And it doesn't mean that we change what we're doing. We have to check that we're still on the right path, maybe make some small adjustments here and there. It's necessary. So hopefully people find solace in the fact that we question what we're doing all the time and making sure that it's still relevant. Very important.
Noticing increasing trend for drivers to disobey robots. I've also noticed.
I'm not talking about the police, Sky. That is shocking. I've actually put some of them on the channel. They went viral. It is shocking. Shocking, shocking, shocking.
That was interesting.
Yes, Phil. Lauren, you've also noticed drivers just absolutely being crazy on the roads.
Indeed.
Yeah, close to where we stay. When you drive out, it's just people going over the stop streets, robots. It is. I think as things deteriorate in any government, the people become more radical in their actions. I think it's frustration. It's just taking chances. People stop caring. I think all of us stop caring to a degree.
Probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, we need people to do things to motivate us too. We also need to be motivated. It's a lot of work that we put in. Lauren puts in so much work and she doesn't get any pay for it. This YouTube channel has been such a blessing because it makes it possible for us to do many things, help with many things, to enable us to give people the training, transfer all the skills. It makes a huge difference. So we really want to thank all of you. And for spreading the messages. It's super important, spreading concepts. There's so many people that are putting things out on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter, etc. Every tweet that you reshare, other people see it in different ways on other platforms as well. So it gets out there. The messages are getting out there.
Thanks, Marlene, for that reminder. Eventually, we'll all be ungovernable.
Yeah.
That's the plan. And remember, ungovernable does not mean out of control. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It means that you're so strong on your own that government can't exert any authority. There's
over
a saying I've always said.
You work with governance, well, whatever we're going to call it. I don't like the word government.
There's a quote that says, "Be so free that your very existence is an act of rebellion."
Yes.
That's what it means to be ungovernable. You just can't be controlled. No one can have power over you.
And yet you're good. You're an example. You're a patriot.
Yeah, I was going to give an example. That's not a good example. When I was at school.
Please don't.
When I was at school, I remember the first time I was sent to detention in high school.
The first time? How many times did you go?
It didn't turn out well. The principal ended up telling my mother I'm unpunishable.
That is Lauren.
And that's kind of where I got the idea of ungovernable.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And a skill set.
Yes. And I think our oldest daughter has inherited that attribute.
Absolutely.
From you.
I'd say all the kids, but specifically her, yes.
Yeah, Emma will knock a toe against something so hard and she'll just look at you with a blank stare. And I'm like, what?
She's been like that since little. It's weird. Yeah. I'm sometimes worried. And then
I think you're the same.
I turned out okay. She'll turn out okay.
Yeah. But thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time. It's almost been an hour and a half again. The ungoverned. It's like outsurance or insurance. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, ungoverned. Are you having fun there?
Yes.
Looking at our videos.
I'm looking at your thumbnails.
Past.
I will not comment. Anyway. So thank you everybody for joining us. The conclusion here is that the cost of governments is a lot. It's a huge burden. The cost of freedom is a lot higher, but different and worth it.
Yeah, do you think that it's worth it? What it means to really be free? And I don't think a lot of people have thought about that yet. Maybe we should unpack that a bit more.
Next week.
Yeah.
We will unpack what it means to be free.
Yes.
And if you're living a life conducive to freedom, because for instance, especially after the lockdown, but even before the lockdown, when I got really into the Gender 21, United
Leave
Nations.
Our kids alone.
No, before that, the Gender 21. Understanding how it's so easy for us to be withheld from nature through legislation.
And you wanted to join the UN. Just so everyone understand that you learned that it's not what it seems.
I started off looking for a job in the United Nations and then a bit more research and then here I am today, okay? Not a friend. And it's sad because the idea behind it was noble, but ultimately it will end in the demise of humanity. But what I was saying is that, as an example, I value being in nature, proper nature, like proper nature where you can't hear or see cars or other humans. And what if that gets taken away from us? Now, a lot of the population, a lot of people might not even care about that, for instance. They might just anticipate that moment when the government will say, come, move into these pigeon coop smart cities. They might love
just
that.
walk into the smart city.
So it's
You
interesting.
get food, you get clothes, you get everything. Just like Klaus Schwab said.
I'm always kind of trying to weigh the balance. How many people want what I want versus how many people want the exact opposite? We need to be a good percentage in order to achieve the ultimate vision, which is a sovereign nation where we can live as free as possible, free from tyranny specifically.
I must say that one thing that's gone up in South Africa in the what's it, not the poll, the census that was done in 2021, so 10 years later, is people said that they are religious. It was 85%. Well, actually, if you add all of them together, it's almost 90% of the people in South Africa.
Yeah.
Of which I think 85% was Christian, and then there were other groups too. So that means the country lends itself towards morals and
that was a
conservative.
Success. That was a success of Leave Our Kids Alone.
Yeah.
Because we had various religions represented,
Mm-hmm.
and all agreed that CSE is damaging to children.
Yeah.
And that is our success. The UN hasn't gotten that hold on South Africa just yet.
No.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. It's almost like the COVID-19 period brought people back to what they proclaimed to be religion-wise. Because at some stage it was in the 70s. Now it's in the upper 80s, which is quite something. It's a big shift in my mind. But the youngsters wanting to leave the country in their droves, 90% of them.
I think social media has a lot to do with that.
Probably.
The UAE just.
But they might not realize that
appealing.
it's not what might not necessarily. Yeah, but it was a poll that was done.
Well, the other problem is that I believe millennials and younger struggle to create something out of nothing, whereas your generation can do that.
Yeah, true. Ilka says, have you seen the map of smart city zones? Is this for South Africa, Ilka? You can email it to us if you want. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. See you on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock in the members live chat. And that's going to be interesting. I'll put out the thumbnail soon and you can see what the topic is. Good night.